I am here in Alameda, California, comfortably zoned, not exactly flying solo. My guest is a fellow who I call the King of Queens, the real King of Queens, not the guy on television, not the fictional kind. There's a guy in Queens, his name is Wayne Unger, who is the King of Queens. How you doing, man?
How you doing, Ralph?
I'm good. I really do.
Queens, though.
No longer Queens, but your heart is and always will be in Jackson Heights. Always.
And my heart will literally be in Jackson Heights tomorrow. So.
Right. I mean, it's not a borough you stay away from, and it's not a section of the borough that you'd ever stay away from under any circumstances. You live out in Staten Island?
I'm in Staten Island, but my mom still lives in Jackson Heights, so I'm there weekly and sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm always in the Heights, and I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah, it's there's a certain something. If you ever get out to California, I want you to come to Alameda because there's something about Alameda that's a lot like the Heights. It's a throwback to the 50s. Notwithstanding, it doesn't have the tall cooperative apartments that bless the Heights, where I grew up in Northridge. And there was Southridge, block after block. There was like 4 square blocks of identical apartments post-war, everyone with 2 or 3 kids of different ages, and it was a great place to grow up, and a great place to learn about sports and to talk sports and to learn that there are opinions and there are knowledgeable opinions. And when I speak sports with you, as with most Jackson Heights people, we're knowledgeable about sports because it's the way we learn to communicate and the way we learned life. It's a microcosm of life, and we try to keep up on it, and you're no different. But the reason I say you're the King of Queens is that you help run reunion websites on Facebook, as an example, for both for Jackson Heights, people who grew up in Jackson Heights. And to do that, you got to have a certain kind of mindset, like you'd be the commissioner of websites. You know what I'm saying? It takes a certain amount of just getting along with people and compromise and seeing both sides of life. And you got it, Wayne, so it's a pleasure for having you on my show, as usual. If you're still on after all my rambling.
I'm still here. So
all right, let's talk a little ball. We're New Yorkers.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Your fantasy draft is tomorrow, and you have the first pick. Who are you picking?
I'd go with Trout. I thought about that. Speed never slumps. He's incredibly youthful. He's out of that sophomore jinx that we used to talk about in the old days, where guys would come in with great rookie years and go down the tubes. I remember Charlie Neal when I was a kid. He was Rookie of the Year in 1959, and by 1962 he was a Met. It was very sad. But that would be my first pick. How about yourself?
Oh, without a doubt. No, I don't even have to. There's no hesitation there. Definitely. I mean, you know what? From my knowledge of what fantasy baseball is about, because keep in mind, like what they count and is a little different than my my so-called fantasy baseball. I do like more of a stat replay thing, along the lines of like the old Stratomatic game. It's a little different, but even in my league, I'm sure he would be. If we were starting from scratch again, he'd be the first pick of the draft as well.
Yeah, he's got speed and power, and he has a good sense of the game. He's in a good situation.
He walks a lot, yes, and he walks a lot.
Right,
And in my game, actually, it takes defense into account, so you get that extra added dimension as well.
Right. Now, your game is based on fictional stats recreated by the computer.
No. My game is based on real life stats from the previous season. It's stat replay. So it's not.
Okay.
Stats aren't fictional. We're using So actually, our season starts this week. We had our draft last Sunday, and so it starts. So the way the replay will go, it'll be based on the stats that the players accumulated in the 2013 season.
Right, accumulated under fictional conditions.
No, under real. No, in other words, it's based on their real 2013 stats, and then we.
But you know them going in, so when you draft, you already know what they did.
We know what they did, but of course, you still, but we. In other words, our teams have 32-man rosters with a 25-man active roster, and you actually play games. You play head-to-head. You are the manager. It's not like a video game with a joystick, and
right.
It's all about probability and algorithms. Like the game processes thousands of different algorithms for each action, and
right.
And into that algorithm goes the pitcher who's pitching, the batter who's batting. I'm sure there's and then there's the fielding aspect, and it also takes. What I love about this game also is there's park effects, there's weather effects, and it also takes the park effects of the players themselves, like where they played at home. So one guy pointed out last year that he noticed that Carlos Gonzalez did not perform as well as he expected, and his home and away stats, there was a big variable. I actually made a trade at mid-season for Edwin Encarnacion, and he performed miserably for me. My field is the old Pittsburgh Forbes field. It's a huge field, and sure enough, I should have done a little more research. He hit much better at home than he did on the road. So
right.
So the game takes a lot of things into consideration. It's real. One of these days, you got to try it.
Well, I played Dynasty or not Dynasty, but Baseball Mogul, and
Mogul is different, right? That's more of a GM kind of thing. With us, you're the GM, but it's a little bit different. But we do make trades. I actually made a trade in the off season and acquired Mr. Trout. So yes, I'm pretty full. My team is stacked this year, and I hate to jinx myself. I expect to win my division this year. I really do. Last year, at least, I knew. Last year, it was like I have a shot. I should contend. And the first year, I felt the same way. But this year, my team is just so stacked.
It gives us a chance to take out our intellectual capacity on something that may sound mundane to a lot of people, but there's a lot that goes on that causes thinking. My friend, and you may know him, Bernie Rose's brother, Marty had a baseball pool long ago that he named "Baseball is only dull for people with dull minds," and that was the name of his fantasy pool way before fantasy baseball was played. They have we played fantasy pools back when I was in high school, so it's been going on a long time, and it shows our love for baseball, and it's kind of great. So give me a long shot. If you had a long shot to really, again, we've talked about this on the internet, mine would be Stephen Drew, a guy who could help the Mets. You're diametrically opposed to signing him, and I'm diametrically for signing him for a number of reasons. We might talk about that.
Well,
tell me your opinion.
All right. I'm opposed to signing him for basically for what he and his agent want to be signed for.
But at this point, they don't seem to be getting it. So,
So does that doesn't mean you give it to them? I mean, who knows? In other words, like it's, I wouldn't give the guy more than a 2-year contract. And based on the market, I mean, like, I don't know. What do you give? He's a decent defender. He's not a what I would say. He's not a defensive standout, but he's certainly not a slouch. He's definitely
solid,
average. He's a solid average, maybe like a line above solid average defensively. He's got a little pop in his bat. Totally, practically useless against left-handers, though. Does not have a very good track record for staying healthy. So, he averages, around 400 and taking the, because I was looking at the numbers, taking his first year out of the equation, because that was a year when he was called up mid-season, so I can't count that. So taking that into consideration, he averages 125 games a year, 425 or so, 440 at-bats a year. So, you don't pay a guy like that. Like, I mean, he turned down, the qualifying offer, which was $14 million for 1 year. I mean, so I'm guessing he's expecting to get something close to that for 3 years. You don't pay a guy.
Okay. So you give him that. I mean, if you're the Mets and you can look into the future with and see that, or into the past and see that no team really wins without a solid up the middle catcher, shortstop, second base, center field. You can't win, and especially without a good catcher and a good shortstop. Now they've got a good catcher coming up, Travis Arnaud, or however you pronounce his name. Arnaud. I feel good about him. I don't feel great about him, but I feel good about him. And you put a shortstop with a little bit of pop in a lineup that is getting a little better. You get Granderson coming. Young, I think, is going to have a standout year. But you have to have a decent shortstop. And if you have to overpay, I don't see the disadvantage in the market that New York is. I can't see the disadvantage in not overpaying, if for nothing else to please your fans, to reward your fans for hanging in there, and to give them some hope that this could be the year. And when I say your fans, I mean me. I am a Met fan. Reward me, Mr. Wilponsky. I mean, it's time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Were you happy when they rewarded you with Jason Bay?
Initially, I was. I couldn't imagine him doing it as bad as he could. It may sound silly, but for the same reason I think Reddick fell off last year. Substance abuse. Who knows about stuff like that? Would you draft Braun again? Do you know how much his past substance abuse has affected his previous stats? Who the hell does know? Will the drop-off of substance abuse be seen? Is there a drop-off of substance abuse or a better masking agent? That's one of the things that help kind of darken a cloud around baseball as we look at it today and make me want to play more fantasy baseball. Where I can go in there and play the 1954 Giants against the 1957 Braves when real life baseball is bothering me with the sim games, because it really does put a cloud over it, just as it does them not electing Mike Piazza to the Hall of Fame. I think that was a disgrace. Why shouldn't Piazza be elected to the Hall of Fame? Because there was a witch hunt by a New York writer or New Jersey writer, Marty Noble, went into the clubhouse and saw acne on Piazza's back and assumed that was because he was doing steroids, or reported that and put a black mark on the man's career. I think it's a witch hunt.
Well,
what say you?
You know what? He's not the only victim. And you know what? The way I feel, this is how I feel about it. I feel as though I think Jose Canseco was pretty much on target when he said close to 80% of the ball players in the 90s were using some kind of performance-enhancing drug. So I look at it like this. I say it's a shame for the 20% or so that weren't, but I look at it like this. It was a level playing field. And if he was, the cream of the crop in a level playing field, well then yes, he should be voted into the Hall of Fame. It's everything is based on era, and that, or it should be. You're supposed to look at, what was he of that era, and he was without a doubt, the best hitting catcher of that era. He actually wasn't the worst catcher behind the plate. He his weakness was throwing out base runners. But he's not the only one. Listen, what about Clemens? What about Bonds? They too, although a little different story with Bonds. I mean, Bonds, of course, was involved with Balco, and he said, he did the cream.
And that little thing about the being caught with cream, which was a steroidal thing, and denying that he knew it was steroids, and that sort of thing.
You know what? Bottom line is, this is what the era was, and these were the best players, and and if they were to me, if you were the best player or recognized it as one of the two best players at your position for a minimum of
should go in.
You should
okay.
Go in.
All right, then I'll just so you can put it on record, and so I have because I respect your opinion. How about the gambling thing? How about Shoeless Joe Jackson? How about Pete Rose?
Well, it's a little different. Okay, that's a little different. Although, because I mean, I'm convinced. I don't care. There's been a lot of things written about what Shoeless Joe Jackson. He hit 375 or so in that World Series. But you know what? In the games they lost, he was notoriously absent, if I remember correctly. So to me, you know what? Yeah, you gambled, you threw. You know what? I don't know. To me, it's I got to say, as much as I look at the numbers and you listen to the whole story about his lack of education, he couldn't even sign his name and all that other stuff, I still got to say, he shouldn't be in. And Pete Rose, again, even more so because he knew better Everything was posted all over, and you made a very, very good point when we had this discussion on Facebook. It wasn't, you know what? It wasn't only that he bet on the games. He only bet on his team, but it sent a signal to the bookies when he did not bet on his teams as well. So,
well, thank you for recognizing that. I think that was a good point. I either read it or heard it somewhere, or even might have thought of it. But it is true. It's the games he didn't bet on either team that did send a signal to the bookies, and the owners are desperately afraid of that, because God knows they don't own racetracks. It's not like Steinbrenner didn't own dog tracks and all that stuff. So it's craziness. It's a lot of it is hypocrisy, and a lot of it is just the evil of big business. Both sides now. Tony Clark with the players' unions coming out and coming up against baseball again. They're going to take this to federal court, and it all can come tumbling down because of greed. They have very, very dubious antitrust laws that make them, set them apart, and they better be very careful. And the funniest part is that Congress oversees hearings to judge baseball players while they mess up the country from here to Wisconsin. So it's crazy.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. All right. Let me just. I just wanted to compliment you again on last year's prognostication when you predicted that the Red Sox, who came out of nowhere, literally last place, in shambles after Bobby Valentine, that escapade, you predicted they'd do well, and I want to know how you feel about John. You predicted that not only that they'd do well, you predicted they'd win it all, and they did. So now I'm looking at the book, and it says John Lester's worth about $7 in Fantasy League, which is a less than mediocre amount. Would you buy him for on the cheap? Do you think he's got a
John Lester on the cheap? Wow. You know what? And you see, you telling me $7 on Fantasy. I don't know what that is, but
well, that's basically Kershaw's a $30 guy.
Okay, and Lester's a $7 guy. I mean, listen, it's like if you get, I mean, what do you get points on for pitching? You get points for wins.
Well, you get points for winning, ERA, whips, saves, and strikeouts. Wins, whips, saves, strikeouts.
If I remember correctly, his whip wasn't terrible. I mean, what was his whip last year? About 1.20 or something.
I don't have the thing right in front of me as we speak, but anyway, I just thought you might have something right off the top of your head, because he's a guy that I've always liked. Given his comeback experience in life, it's easy to root for a guy like that.
I just pulled up his numbers, okay, and I'm looking at his numbers, and his, you know what? I mean, he had less hits than innings pitched, just not a lot less, just like 4 less. But he only gave up 67 walks in 213 innings.
How many strikeouts? Oh, yeah, strikeouts is a category. Strikeouts is the 5th category.
177 strikeouts. Not bad for 213 innings.
No.
What about home runs? The home runs count against him?
No, they don't.
Okay.
It's a very simple 5-by-5 league.
Okay. I would think, yeah. I mean, listen, he was healthy all through the year, all through the playoffs and the World Series, I would say he's definitely worth $7.
Beautiful. All right. You helped make the decision for me. Hey, thanks, man. It's always a pleasure, and we'll do this again. Thanks for blessing our airways. You're comfortably zoned. I'm going to sign out the way I've been signing out of late. I implore you, all of you, to keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet, keep your kids off the laps of clerics wearing dresses, and keep your kids out of military recruiting offices. Do not use your children as rich people's fodder for war that is not necessary. We've had enough of imperialistic crap. We got to get along in this world. Signing off. Thanks a lot for being here, Wayne. Wayne Unger, New York, New York.
Thanks, Val. Bye-bye.